Now, Father Gruner always cited the example of Bishop
Mm.
Grosseteste in
Yes.
1251, who received a papal mandate to create a diocesan see for the Pope's nephew. And the Pope said, and the bishop said, I'm not doing that. That's a ridiculous abuse of power. And so this is a famous example of the Pope
Mm.
saying, nothing doing. You cannot abuse your authority in that way. And so I resist that command. And that was a command of governance. So that's
Yes.
an historical example that you could cite, but would it work in Tyler, Texas? No, because of the diocesan structure, because of the Conference of Catholic Bishops. Strickland would be an outcast. He would not have the support of either the diocesan apparatus or the Conference of Catholic Bishops, which itself is a novelty, of course. And Francis would at some point probably just declare that he's excommunicated.
Mm.
So that would get us nowhere. So what can we do practically? I would say that in a sense, Strickland has been freed to do a different kind of apostolate. He may not be a local ordinary, but now he can go around the world freed of the obligations of being a local ordinary and champion legitimate resistance to the Pope's novelties, to his obvious attempt to
Yeah.
destroy the traditions of the church in every way that he seems empowered to do. And even though he doesn't have the authority to do it, so he could become a leader of the resistance. Now that has its own perils, because Francis may then, even in that case, say, you're excommunicated. I wouldn't put anything past him. So he's in a difficult position, but I think the only practical solution to the problem is not to defy the Pope and say, I'm not vacating my see. That won't work. But he can become essentially an ombudsman for the traditionalist movement.
Well, and again, I agree with your analysis because another angle that the scholastics always said when resisting a tyrant, which again, I think we both agree, this is a tyrant. This is someone who's governing for his own personal pleasure. You can't just do it if you have no reasonable chance of success. And if your analysis is right, the priest of the diocese wouldn't support him, the apparatus wouldn't. Then you could conclude that. But again, take an example of another bishop, Bishop Antonio de Castromayor in Campos, Brazil, refused to resign. They he basically and he stayed in and refused to implement the new mass for many years, but he had the priest behind him. The priest of the diocese, the entire diocesan apparatus said, yeah, we're staying with you. They even appointed another bishop off to the side to try to get everybody away. Nobody really left, but he had that what you're talking about, and he resisted until he was really just too old to carry on. But that again is an example. Now, I think you're probably right from what I've read about Tyler. I think he probably doesn't have enough support to do this, and it would be a bit of a fool's crusade. But I think, in principle, if he did have that support, I think he would be justified. But prudentially, I think you're right.
We
Now,
have a very difficult, really rather astonishing situation here. We have a pope who is acting as if he were the schismatic.
yeah,
We're not pronouncing him as schismatic. We're not declaring that he's outside the church. But the theological writers, including Torquemada and a couple of others, have essayed the possibility of a schismatic pope. Now, de facto, he's acting like a schismatic because he wants to excommunicate tradition,
mm,
summarily removing a bishop who's doing nothing more than promoting the traditional Catholic faith in his diocese, including the Latin liturgy. So this is a really unusual situation. Maybe you could justify another type of campos arrangement,
mm,
a holding action, but I don't think it would work in Tyler, Texas. But it may be the case that this has to be done more than once. If
mm.
he's going to go around and systematically remove every bishop who exhibits a vestige of traditional Catholicism and is holding forth against his steamroller attempt to give us a different church, they may arise, and he himself, Francis, has admitted this, there may arise a situation in which he, the Pope, provokes schisms that are
Mm.
warranted under the circumstances. They would be de facto schisms. In other words, they would not occupy diocesan real estate, but they would be faithful Catholics,
Mm.
as during the time of the Arian heresy. So Francis has admitted that I may be the Pope that causes schisms. He's also said in one of his many interviews, I'm not afraid of schisms. I hope they don't happen, but I'm not afraid of them. So this is a pope who's willing to force people out of the church in order to impose his own vision of what the church should be. And when I say force them out of the church, I mean the visible church, the real estate,
Right.
the formal
The
structure.
buildings.
But they
The
would be
building.
exiled to the desert and they would be Catholics.